Well, hello, and welcome to another chapter of Heart to Heart. I'm John Kuert, the interim pastor at First Assembly in Newcastle, and what are you all laughing about? Oh, well, yeah, I've decided to wear my Superman shirt that some of my staff gave me a few years ago, and today I feel super. And I want all of us to realize that we are supermen and women when we really get a hold of God. I better button this up so that you can all stop laughing. But we can all be supermen and women when we really get a hold of God and through prayer and fasting. And that's what we've been doing this week. And I pray that it's been a great week for you. And I pray that you've stepped out in faith and tried to fast and pray. It does really make us not super spiritual necessarily. We don't want to be that, but it does add power to our prayers and effectiveness to our intercession. So we've been talking this week about Nehemiah and how that he got a report from his homeland that the city and his homeland was in a bad way, and then he just had such a burden for it. He began to sit down and he wept and he prayed and he fasted for days, and then yesterday we talked about how he really expected God to do something, and as he realized, as he prayed and fasted, he began to realize how great God is, and he began to worship God. And as he did that, he just had this rising faith in his heart that God was going to do something, that he really expected success with God's help. And in Nehemiah 1:11, we read this: "Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man." Nehemiah was stepping out of his comfort zone, and he was going to make a request of the king. Now, in those days, if you did that and it was a bad day for the king, he could just have your head cut off. He could just say, take him, throw him in prison for the rest of his life, or kill him, or burn him at the stake, or whatever, because the kings had authority and power like that. And so, even though Nehemiah had found favor in the past with the king, he was the king's cupbearer. In other words, he tasted the food and the drink before the king ate it, so that the king was not poisoned. And so Nehemiah was going to go to him and request that he could go back to his homeland, and he knew that was dangerous for him to do, but nevertheless he did it. And as he did, he got favor with the king, even though he was stepping out of his comfort zone and he was fearing what would happen, what could possibly happen. He did it, and he found favor. And Nehemiah fully expected success because, first of all, and I want to just give you three things here. First of all, he knew that God was on his side. It's great to know that God is on our side. And the Bible says in Romans, the Apostle Paul wrote, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" And so, first of all, Nehemiah knew that God was on his side. Secondly, he knew that this was God's cause. When we're praying for something that we know is in the will of God, like praying for the souls of people, praying for people to be delivered, praying for people to be healed, we know that these things are in the will of God. And so Nehemiah, he knew that this was God's cause, and so he wasn't asking something outlandish. He wasn't asking for something selfish, but he knew it was God's cause. And when we're asking within the realm of what is God's cause, we can pray with confidence. And thirdly, he knew that God had given him this burden and this vision. It wasn't something that just, suddenly came on him, but as he heard the condition of Israel and his homeland, something welled up within him, and he knew that it was this burden that God was putting on him, and this vision to go back and to change things and to be an instrument. He knew he was only one, but he knew he needed other people to be with him, and he knew that he needed the king's release to go, and so he had this vision, and because he knew it was from God, he had confidence as he went out. You know, sometimes we quote Philippians 4:13 that says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And we say, I believe, but we really don't believe because we don't expect. And I believe that sometimes we're afraid to expect too much in case it doesn't come to pass, and then we don't want to be disappointed. So we need to pray like Nehemiah prayed, with a burden, with fasting and prayer, with expectation, knowing that God was on his side, and that he had received this burden and this vision from God. He really believed. And I want to end with a story today about a man named Jean-Francois Gravelet. He was a Frenchman, known professionally as Charles Blondin. And he became the first daredevil to walk across Niagara Falls on a tightrope. The feat, which was performed 160 feet above the Niagara Gorge, just downriver from the falls, was witnessed by some 5,000 spectators. He was wearing pink tights and a yellow tunic, and Blondin crossed a cable about 2 inches in diameter and about 1,100 feet long, with only a balancing pole to protect him from plunging into the dangerous rapids below. It was the first in a series of famous Niagara tightrope walks performed by the great Blondin from 1859 to 1860. And these ascensions, as he advertised them, always had different theatrical variations, including tightrope walks that were blindfolded, or wheeling a wheelbarrow across the tightrope, or at one time he carried his manager on his back. But I read where one time after he took a wheelbarrow across the falls, he asked the crowd, would somebody, who believes that I could put somebody in this wheelbarrow and take them across the falls? And everybody said, yes, we believe. Oh, yes. And he said, could I have a volunteer? And nobody volunteered. You see, they believed that he could, but they really didn't believe that he could do it with them in it. So they really didn't believe, because they weren't willing to step out or step in to the wheelbarrow and let him push them across Niagara Falls. And that's like us a lot of times. We see God do many, many things, great feats that he has done for us. And yet we believe, oh, yes, God can do it. He can do it again. But then we really don't believe, because we don't expect and we don't step out. So I'm challenging you, as we come to the end of this week of prayer and fasting, to continue to pray, continue to fast, continue to believe for great things. And let's let God do amazing, supernatural, miraculous things in our midst. And you know, sometimes that doesn't always have to be healings and some sensational thing. You know what would be a great miracle in First Assembly? Would be for people to come together again in unity and harmony and love and forgiveness, and see God to melt away hurt and bitterness. That would be a supernatural manifestation of God's power in our midst. I believe it. And I'm trusting that God is going to help us to see that. And not only that, but to see other people come in, new people. We need new people. We need young couples. We need families. And we're going to work on things to make that happen. And we want to see great worship, and we want to see our kids and our youth ministered to. And so we're going to be really working on that in the months to come. And I believe God's going to help us, and it's going to be miraculous. God's going to answer prayer for us. He's not finished with Newcastle First Assembly just yet, folks. And that's why I'm glad I'm here to be on hand to see when he does some awesome things in our midst. Well, God bless you. Thank you for this week of prayer and fasting. Keep it up, and let's just really trust God for great things ahead. Hope you have a great day and a great weekend, and Lord willing, we will see you this Sunday again on Mother's Day. We have a special gift for all the mothers. Unfortunately, we can't be in the sanctuary again, but we will be there for our drive-in church. And we want to bless you moms and all of the women, all the ladies, even the young women. And we want to thank God for you in our lives and the special ministries that you have to us. And so God bless you. Have a great weekend. We'll see you